Hi again, friends! Welcome back to Dark Souls 2. Today let's finish exploring No Man's Wharf and maybe do it properly this time. Now, our Ring of Life Protection sort of minimized the catastrophe that could have happened when we took our little tumble against the Dark Dwellers. We're still human form, we still have all of our souls, everything is fine. However, the ring is now broken, so if we want to use it again, we need to go find Lennegrass and get him to repair it. I'm going to try and avoid using that mechanic too much because it's kind of... because it's kind of game trivializing in a certain sense. With most of the items here already cleared out, we can sort of just make a straight path for where we left off. Of course, we wouldn't want to just blow by all of the enemies because then they could just sneak up on us from behind. And the Varangians and Dark Dwellers do a lot of damage, so we probably don't want to get snuck up upon. Alright. It's time to take on this room a little bit more carefully. Unfortunately, the Dark Dwellers are really good at doing their weird little crab walk, so hitting them with arrows from a distance can actually be kind of difficult. Not so much when they pile on into the small room, but if they're out in the open, they'll just sort of dodge and weave and be really weird. Now, blocking their attacks with the shield will definitely take the edge off in terms of how much damage it does. But that bleeding bar will still fill up very quickly, so it's better to dodge. And as we saw last episode, if the bar fills up completely, you take a big chunk of damage and you get slowed down by quite a bit. See, we just got bled right through our shield. Fortunately, Dark Dweller attacks don't come out very quickly. They have a lot of reach, and they're quite powerful, but they're telegraphed fairly well. So if you just stay at a safe-ish distance, you should be okay. They are quite weak to ranged attacks if you have them. An unupgraded short bow with wooden arrows is not really a good solution, but it's better than just throwing yourself bodily into the whole nest. Depending on the weapon you're using, this entire sequence can be easy or quite difficult. The Dark Dwellers are fairly vulnerable to heavy weapons like the Bastard Sword. They don't have that much poise, so it's not impossible to stun lock them with a big old greatsword. There are a ton of these things in this house. That should be the last of them. Inside we find a friend and some treasure. In one chest is the greatsword. And in another chest is death. Those arrows do grievous amounts of damage to our health bar should we get hit by them. Our reward for surviving that trap are some silver talismans. Let's try one out. Transform to blend into the environment. Excellent. We are on a mission.
Who are you? I, Gavlan. Gavlan will, Gavlan deal. Gavlan wants soul. Many, many soul. What you want? With Gavlan, you will, you deal.
Gavlan has a bit of a one-track mind, apparently more than willing to do business with a bookcase. But he does offer a unique service in the fact that he will let us sell off duplicate weapons and armor and other such things for a fairly small amount of souls, but every little bit helps. His inventory is mostly comprised of poison. Poison arrows, poison throwing knives, poison pine resin, and even some poison curing moss. I recommend highly at least buying out a supply of poison arrows.
Gavlan will, Gavlan deal. Gavlan wants soul. What? With Gavlan? Many deal, many thanks.
Be very quiet. Oh, heavens to Betsy, we've been noticed. To exit your cunning disguise, all you need to do is attack or roll or any such option. Spear is starting to look a little beat up, so let's switch. The Hadanite sword does both slashing damage and lightning damage. It's a very powerful weapon for early in the game. It also has a unique attack pattern. It's more in line with a mace or an axe than a straight sword. The goal of this area is to ring this bell. Ringing this bell will, as you can see, bring the ghost ship into port. This is actually a fairly easy mechanic to miss, because you can just sort of pull right by that lever without even noticing it, and then you'll just sort of be left thinking that this area had no point at all. It is technically optional, but that's because the place it leads is accessible by other means, not because it's just there. Dark Dwellers, as the game is happy to sort of point out to us with this drop of fire arrows, are very weak to fire. The fire arrows we find here turn this encounter to what could have been a real struggle in this small area into a fairly trivial game of just shooting them in the butt. It looks like the ghost ship is not entirely unmanned. Let's see if we can snipe this guy. This is one of the difficulties with using projectile weapons in this game. Finding the exact right way to get around world geometry without leaving an arrow in it can be an exercise in frustration. This issue becomes especially apparent if you are trying to use something as, say, cover. Like if you're hiding behind a pillar while shooting at an enemy that was also shooting at you. In that situation, the enemy will have the natural advantage because they have a much better read on where their arrows can go in terms of whether or not they'll hit the wall. And even if they will, they also have homing properties because they cheat, but that's sort of a different thing. In this house, we find some more sleeping Varangians, as well as some curious-looking urns. Take out the Varangians as you would any other, but be very careful of the giant vases. They are filled with poisonous goop. Do not follow the advice of this left message and do not do what I did and roll. As you can see, that immediately poisoned us. It also leaves a nasty green residue around our feet, which means that as long as that remains, poison will continually and steadily build up. Hal's got quite an arm. There's another crystal lizard here that is going to helpfully demonstrate why these things suck ass. If your weapon has a certain kind of attack pattern, then they are extremely difficult to hit. I will have to return here later using a straight sword or something. That has a much better chance of actually tagging them. Our reward for this secret area, along with some miscellaneous goodies, is the Royal Soldier's Ring. The Royal Soldier's Ring increases our maximum equip load. However, the effect is very modest compared to, say, Havel's Ring from the first game. So, super heavy builds will require significant investment in vitality. Since these guys are weak to fire, let's switch to the fire longsword. If you just keep swinging, it looks like it'll take them out in one full combo. The game is really intent on giving me tattered cloth manchettes. We're nearing the end of the area. The ghost ship is almost within reach. However, some sneaking fake Vikings decided that they want to try and lay a trap for us here. It's sort of difficult to hit them with arrows, but if you can, they'll fall to their deaths pretty quickly. They're also quite vulnerable to getting pushed off just as they start clambering up the side. So, if you just take it slow, you can turn the ambush effectively right around. Now, the Varangians drop the Varangian set, which is fairly unremarkable, except for this helmet, which is, curiously, one of the stronger helmets in the game in terms of given weight and given resistances. However, we will brook no historical inaccuracy in this LP.
I sense power. Very well. From this day, you shall be my new pupil. I am Carillion, Carillion of the Fold. Surely you've heard the name. Now, do not be afraid. Let us explore the limits of sorcery. The forces of magic and souls lie dormant in this land. It is a fitting place to hone my sorceries. I suspect that I may even conjure up new spells here. Sorcery is yet a mystery, even to me. Let us mature together, young pupil. Use scrolls to unleash the power of sorceries. But the power of each scroll is reliant on that of its owner. The untrained cannot wield a scroll to its proper potential. Never forget, young pupil, there are no shortcuts to mastery. The forces of magic, sorcery.
Alright, well, we're getting shot at, so let's try and buy what we need real quick here. Carillion sells a variety of useful magic spells, including the very powerful magic weapon. Let's go ahead and buy that, and move to a safer position.
Young pupil, do not take my teachings lightly.
Carillion is a bit pompous, but he is generous enough, and his heart is in the right place. However, he will not talk to you unless you have at least 8 intelligence, so most classes will require at least some investment in intelligence points to even get access to his services. The ghost ship is one of my favorite set pieces in this game. It's a little underutilized, but fighting on it and exploring it is fairly memorable, in my opinion. I have no idea how to steer a boat, or else I'd just cast off to parts unknown. The boss of this area is actually hidden away in the below decks of the ship. However, before we face that boss, there's something I want to go get first. Be careful on the way back here. Even with all of the torches lit from the lockstone, visibility is still a little poor. And one wrong step and you're taking a one-way trip down to the bottom of the drink. Switching weapons again. Considering the greatsword briefly, but seeing that we don't have enough strength to wield it even with 2 hands, let's try the halberd instead. since we have enough dexterity to use it now, we can successfully two-hand it. And the halberd is quite powerful. It's also quite heavy, so let's go ahead and unequip the stuff we don't need. We won't need a shield if we are going to be two-handing this. Now earlier on in this house we opened up a shortcut. This will make return trips to this area much easier should we need to make them. It also contains Lucatiel's summon sign. Let's go ahead and pay her a call. Lucatiel is an NPC with a sort of quest line attached to her that we can advance by summoning her and successfully fighting with her against some bosses. This is the first opportunity we will probably have to actually successfully summon her and do what we need to do. Now, unfortunately, actually getting her to the boss can be kind of difficult because, well, Soul's AI is a little infamous for having difficulty with properly navigating rickety catwalks and the like. So we sort of need to keep an eye on her and safely lead her to the destination. Now the next boss, pardon the Freudian slip as I just walked past a box. The next boss is weak to poison, so let's apply our rotten pine resin to our halberd. Lucatiel? Are you okay? Fuck that thing, I guess, whatever it was. This is the Flexile Sentry. The Flexile Sentry is a boss that doesn't have very many weak spots. Since it's sort of two large lizard guys hooked together in this bizarre armor contraption, he can attack both in front of him and behind him fairly well. His attacks are fairly well telegraphed, and they do cause bleeding, like a lot of things in this area. Lucatiel is extremely helpful here. She can take a very large amount of punishment before she hits the dirt. Quite a bit more than us. Let's back off and try not to die. Enemies with rusting grav attacks like that can be difficult to dodge. Now, as you can see, due to the fact that the Flexile Sentry died without anything touching him, we were successful in using the pine resin to poison him. There are a lot of enemies in this game that are weak or at least susceptible to poison, so keep that in mind if you're having trouble. Our reward for beating the sentry is our very first pyromancy flame, as well as a complimentary fireball spell. Now, before we examine that strange and outlandish object on the other side of that cabin, I need to go back and talk to Carillion real quick. It's sort of a nuisance, but I believe that if you don't talk to him after you kill the Flexile Sentry, he will not properly move on to Majula. And given that I have had trouble with certain NPCs flagged before, I think that it's worth the 3-minute detour to make sure that he properly packs up and leaves.
Do you seek my teachings? Very well, very well. Use scrolls.
Now, it took me a little bit to remember here that he doesn't actually get any new talk dialogue lines.
Use scroll. Never forget.
To actually get him to acknowledge that he's leaving, you need to... Well, first we'll buy another thing from him since we got some more souls from the sentry. That sounds like a useful ring to have. And heavy soul arrow. Why not? That's only 12 intelligence. That should be fairly within our reach if we so desire.
Young pupil, may we meet again in Majula?
You just need to talk to him, maybe buy something, and then he'll say, we'll meet again in Majula when you leave. He can also reinforce that pyromancy flame we just found, but unfortunately for us, that's no longer just an investment of souls like it was in the first game. To make our pyromancy flame stronger, not only do we need to invest souls in it, we need to present fire seeds. Fire seeds are special items we can find scattered around the world, and they have no other use but making our pyromancy flame stronger. They're basically upgrade tokens. Most likely this system was put in place to prevent the sort of soul level 1 shenanigans that players could get into in the first game, whereby simply upgrading your pyromancy flame to max at the earliest opportunity, you could very easily get through the game without ever actually increasing your actual stats. This was a bit of a problem when you consider the implications for PvP. Examining that strange device actually makes the ship start moving, sort of like some sort of magical autopilot. It seems our destination is that building over there on that island. Well, wherever it is, we've made it to some sort of sheer cliff face. We'll explore this next time. For now, I think that's enough. Talk to you guys later.